I still don't know how to explain what happened that night. Every time I think back to it, my stomach tightens and I feel that same uneasy chill crawl down my spine. It was late, almost past midnight, and I had just finished a long shift at the restaurant where I worked. The buses had already stopped running and the streets were empty. Normally, I'd call a rideshare app, but my phone had died hours earlier. All I wanted was to get home, take off my uniform, and sleep. So I did what I'd done before. I stood by the main road and tried to flag down a taxi. At first, it seemed hopeless. Car after car sped past, their headlights blinding, not a single one slowing down. The street was too quiet, too wide, and too dark. The kind of place where every sound echoes, and even your own footsteps sound suspicious. After maybe 15 minutes, I saw it. Headlights approaching low and steady. An older model taxi, the kind you rarely see anymore. Its paint was black, the surface dull, and its taxi sign wasn't lit. In fact, there was no sign at all. But as it got closer, the driver slowed down. He pulled up right next to me, leaned over and unlocked the back door. I hesitated. Something about the car felt off. Maybe it was the way it looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years, or how the windows were tinted so dark I could barely see inside. But I was tired, desperate to get home. And when you're standing alone on an empty street past midnight, your brain doesn't think logically. You just want to be safe. So I got in. The inside smelled faintly of old leather and something else I couldn't place, like damp wood or dust from an attic. The seat cushions sagged beneath my weight and the floor mats were frayed at the edges. The driver didn't say a word. He just glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes catching mine for a split second, and then he started driving. I cleared my throat. Can you take me to Pine Avenue, near 34th? He didn't respond. Not a word. Just a faint nod. The silence in that car was unbearable. I could hear the hum of the engine, the faint squeak of the suspension, and nothing else. No radio, no phone buzzing, not even the sound of the driver clearing his throat. Just nothing. I tried to relax, telling myself maybe he wasn't the talkative type, but as we drove I noticed something strange. The streets were empty, completely empty. Now I knew it was late, but this was the city. It's never that empty. Usually there are at least a few cars, someone walking their dog, a bus rolling by. But here, nothing. It was like we were the only ones left. After 10 minutes, I realized we weren't going the right way. Instead of turning toward Pine Avenue, the driver had taken a longer route. I leaned forward slightly. "Hey, this isn't the right way. You're supposed to turn left back there." The driver didn't react. His hand stayed firmly on the wheel, eyes fixed straight ahead. I felt a lump forming in my throat. "Did you hear me? I said you missed the turn." Still nothing. I looked out the window, hoping to recognize where we were, but every street looked the same. Empty intersections, flickering streetlights, storefronts with shutters down, and no signs of life. I reached for my phone out of habit, only to remember it was dead. My stomach twisted. "Listen," I said louder this time. "I need to go to Pine Avenue. Just let me out here if you don't know where that is." Finally, the driver spoke. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "We're almost there." That didn't calm me. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. We drove in silence for a few more minutes, my pulse hammering in my ears. I started paying attention to details, the driver's hands gripping the wheel, his pale knuckles, the way he never once looked back at me in the mirror again. And then suddenly, the car slowed down. I exhaled in relief, thinking maybe he was finally letting me out. But when I looked around, I froze. We were back at the exact same corner where I had gotten in. Same bus stop, same flickering streetlight, same crumbling billboard. The driver stopped the car, shifted into park, and without turning his head said, "Get out." I stared at him, confused. "What? This isn't—" "Get out." His voice was sharper this time, leaving no room for argument. I opened the door slowly, my hands trembling, and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The moment I shut the door, the driver pulled away. The car didn't speed off, didn't roar down the road. It just rolled away smoothly, the taillights dimming as it vanished into the dark. I stood there, my heart thudding so hard I thought I might pass out. It took me a full minute to gather myself, to understand what had just happened. I hadn't given him my starting point, and yet he had brought me right back to where I'd begun. The street was still empty. No cars, no people. Just silence. I ended up walking home that night, every shadow making me flinch, every distant noise making me turn around. I didn't see another taxi, another pedestrian, nothing. By the time I reached my apartment, my legs felt like they'd collapse under me. For days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way the driver never reacted. The way the streets had been completely deserted. The way I ended up right back where I started. I even tried asking around, describing the taxi to other drivers. Black, old, no sign on top. Some nodded knowingly, others just shook their heads. One older driver told me quietly, "If you see a cab like that again, don't get in. Some rides aren't meant to take you anywhere." I laughed it off at the time, but deep down, I knew he was serious. To this day, I don't take taxis at night. I don't care how tired I am, how far I need to go, or if my phone is dead. I'd rather walk, because once you ride in a car that shouldn't exist, you never forget it. And every time I pass that corner, I half expect to see those same headlights creeping toward me again. It all started as something so small, something almost unnoticeable, that most people in the neighborhood didn't even pay attention at first. On the corner of Elmsworth Street, there was this old abandoned building with a wide crumbling wall that faced the bus stop. For years, that wall had been covered in faded paint, graffiti, and dust. It was just another piece of forgotten concrete in a city full of forgotten corners. But one morning, a line of handwriting appeared on it. Neat, deliberate handwriting, written in black ink that stood out sharply against the pale brick. The first line simply said, "Don't be late tonight." Nobody knew who wrote it. Some thought it was just a prank, some teenager messing around. But others, especially the older residents, noticed something strange immediately. The handwriting wasn't like graffiti. It wasn't spray paint or chalk. It looked like it had been etched there overnight, clean and precise, as if the wall itself wanted the words to appear. The next day, another sentence appeared. This time it said, "Check the second window." Now people were paying attention, because the thing was, every single morning without fail, there was a new line, always around the same length, always written in the same spot, and no one ever saw anyone writing it. Some residents claimed they stayed up late watching from their windows, but the wall remained blank all night. Then, like clockwork, when the sun rose, there it was, a new sentence, waiting for them. At first, the sentences were vague, almost harmless. Stuff like, "Don't forget the lights," or "It's quieter after 11. But as the days went on, the messages became more specific. One morning, it read, "The man in the red cap will not return." That freaked people out, because just the night before, an older man who always wore a red baseball cap had failed to show up at the corner store he visited daily. Nobody had seen him since. His family filed a missing person report later that week. That was when the neighborhood stopped treating it like a prank. People started whispering. Some said it was a warning, others thought it was a sick game. But no one could explain how the writing kept appearing. I lived 2 blocks away at the time, and curiosity got the best of me. One night I decided to stay near the wall, hidden in my car, parked far enough that I wouldn't draw attention. I waited. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The wall remained blank. At around 2 in the morning, though, I noticed movement. A figure stepped out from the alleyway beside the building. A tall man, thin, wearing a long coat. His face was turned away from me, but what struck me most was his hands. He raised one hand and pressed his fingers against the brick. I expected him to pull out a marker, chalk, anything, but there was nothing in his hand. Yet as his fingers moved, the letters formed, perfectly, cleanly. The wall seemed to accept the strokes of his fingers as if it were paper. I sat there frozen, watching the sentence appear. When he was done, he stepped back, looked at it for a second, and then turned his head slightly, like he could feel me watching. That's when I ducked down in the car seat, heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. When I looked back up, he was gone. The next morning, the message was there in plain sight for everyone. Someone is watching. That was enough for me. I didn't want to be anywhere near that wall again, but the neighborhood couldn't ignore it. People started gathering every morning to see the new message. The police got involved too. They even set up cameras around the building, but for some reason, the footage never caught anything. Every single time, the cameras would glitch between 1:55 and 2:10 a.m. By the time the feed came back, the message was already on the wall. Weeks went by and the sentences grew darker. One said, "She won't make it home." That same evening, a woman from the street was mugged just 2 blocks away and ended up in the hospital. Another message read, "Don't open the door tonight." A family on the street later reported that someone had tried to break into their house around midnight, but they had bolted the door shut after seeing the message. It was as if whoever, or whatever, was writing on that wall knew what was coming. By now, the story had spread far beyond the neighborhood. Reporters came, curious thrill seekers too, but the wall never failed. Every morning, another chilling line. People argued whether it was a blessing or a curse. Some saw it as protection. Others thought it was causing the bad events to happen. The scariest part, though, came about a month later. The message that morning was longer than usual. It said, "The one who keeps watching will be the next to disappear." And that was the morning I felt my blood run cold, because I knew. It was talking about me. I had been there. I had watched the figure right on the wall. I had told no one. No one except you now as I tell this story. But back then only I knew the truth of what I had seen. For days I couldn't sleep. I kept my curtains shut, avoided the wall completely, and tried to pretend none of it had ever happened. But one night, coming home late, I passed near that corner. I didn't want to, but my car had to go by. And as I looked, I saw him again. The man in the coat, standing in front of the wall, not writing this time, just staring across the street, staring at my car as it rolled past. The next morning, the message said, "Closer than you think." I moved out of that neighborhood the following week. I couldn't take it anymore. To this day, I don't know what became of that wall. Some say the building was eventually demolished. Others say the messages still appear on the construction boards they put up. But I'll tell you this, I never went back to check. And maybe that's why I'm still here to tell you this story. There's a small street in my old neighborhood that most people avoid after dark. Not because it's dangerous, not because of crime, but because of something far stranger. If you walk down that street past midnight, you'll notice one particular lamppost, an old, rusted one that flickers in and out like it's on the verge of burning out. People call it the breathing light because of the way it dims and brightens rhythmically, almost like it's alive. But that's not why people avoid it. They avoid it because of the girl. The first time I heard about her, I thought it was just another urban legend, one of those stories kids tell to scare each other. But the details were too consistent. Too many people had seen her. A young girl, maybe 12 or 13, standing directly under the lamppost. She wears a simple white dress, always clean, always pressed, and she carries a small book in her hands. Her hair falls in neat waves over her shoulders, and her face, well, that's the thing. People say she looks completely normal, friendly even. What unsettles everyone isn't how she looks. It's what she says. If you pass her, she'll look up at you with the most natural smile and ask, "Excuse me, could you tell me where the library is?" That's it. Just that one question. Always the same. Most people who've encountered her say she doesn't seem threatening. She doesn't follow you, doesn't scream, doesn't act strange beyond repeating the question. But if you answer her, no matter what you say, she just thanks you politely, looks down at her book again, and stands there. If you pass by the next night, or even an hour later, she'll ask you the exact same question again. It sounds harmless, right? But here's where it gets strange. A friend of mine, Jason, told me his story. He used to work late shifts at the factory down the road, and his route home passed directly by that lamppost. One night he saw her standing there. He thought she was a lost kid, so he stopped. She looked completely normal, he told me. Like a schoolgirl waiting for her parents. I asked if she was okay, and she just smiled at me and asked about the library. I pointed her toward the actual public library a few streets over, but she just nodded and kept standing there. Didn't move an inch. Jason thought maybe she was waiting for someone, so he walked on. But the next night, at the same time, there she was again. Same spot, same dress, same question. By the third night, Jason decided to test her. He asked, "What's your name?" She just tilted her head slightly, smiled, and repeated the same question. "Could you tell me where the library is?" That was when he got spooked. He swore to me he never took that street again after that. At first, I thought he was exaggerating, maybe pulling my leg. But then it happened to me. It was a rainy Thursday night, and I had stayed too late at work. My car was in the shop, so I had to walk home. I wasn't even thinking about the stories as I turned onto that street. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the air smelled like wet pavement. I was cold, tired, and just wanted to get home. Then I saw it, the lamppost ahead, flickering gently like it always did, and under it, her. She looked exactly how Jason described, a white dress, neat hair, small book clutched in her hands. She looked so out of place in the rain, but her dress wasn't wet at all. Not a drop. As I approached, she looked up at me. Her smile was warm, almost disarming. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Could you tell me where the library is?" I froze. Her voice was calm, clear, and normal. Not eerie, not distorted, just a girl asking a question. But every instinct in me screamed that something wasn't right. My mouth went dry. I wanted to keep walking, pretend I hadn't heard her, but my legs wouldn't move. Finally, I forced myself to nod. "It's, a few blocks east, on Maple Street." "Thank you," she said, her eyes dropping back to her book. She didn't open it, didn't turn a page, just stared at the cover. I walked away quickly, heart pounding, refusing to look back. The next morning, I convinced myself it was just a weird encounter. Maybe she was some local kid playing a prank. But 2 nights later, when I passed the street again, she was there. Same spot, same flickering light, same dress. And she asked me the same question. This time I didn't answer. I just kept walking, ignoring her. But before I turned the corner, I glanced back. She was still staring at me, her smile frozen in place. That image has stuck with me ever since. I started digging, asking other locals if they'd seen her. Most just shook their heads, unwilling to talk. But one older man, the kind who'd lived on that block his whole life, finally told me something. "They've been seeing her there for years," he said quietly. "Longer than you've been alive. Some folks say she's the ghost of a girl who used to study late at the library and never made it home one night. Others say it's something else entirely. Not a person at all. Just something that takes the shape of one." I asked him if anyone had ever followed her. He just looked at me sharply. "Don't. Whatever you do, don't follow her. That's how people disappear." I didn't believe him at first. But then I heard about a teenager who tried, a kid named Mark. Brave, cocky, the kind who laughed at scary stories. His friends dared him to stay near the lamppost and talk to the girl. According to them, he did. He stood there, asking her questions, trying to get her to break character. She never did. She just kept asking where the library was. Finally, Mark told his friends he was going to follow her if she left. That was the last night they ever saw him. The police report said he ran away. His parents insisted he would never do that. His friends, though, they knew the truth even if they didn't admit it. After that, I avoided that street at night. For months, I wouldn't go near it. But one evening, curiosity got the better of me. I told myself it was nonsense, that I had imagined half of it. So I went back. The lamppost was still there, flickering softly like always. But she wasn't. Relief washed over me. Maybe the stories had finally ended. Maybe she had moved on, whatever she was. Then, just as I turned to leave, I heard it. A soft voice behind me. "Excuse me. Could you tell me where the library is?" I didn't look back, I ran. And I've never walked that street again.